The Kremlin has said it will decide on how and when to respond to Ukraine's latest daring strikes on the Russian air bases, with President Vladimir Putin personally informing the American President Donald Trump that retaliation is quite simply inevitable. The destruction of these long-range aircraft has enraged Moscow as Ukraine is bracing for what many believe could be a massive retaliatory strike. Now, the war has sharply intensified. Kharkiv is bearing the brunt of Moscow's fury, and Kharkiv's mayor, Ihor Terkov, shared CCTV footage showing the moment of the strike on high-rise residential buildings and the surrounding area. In Ukraine's Poltava region, a deadly Russian missile strike targeted the army training facilities, killing at least about 2 people, and this comes just days after a similar strike in Dnipropetrovsk that left about 12 soldiers dead and forced a high-ranking Ukrainian officer to resign. Russia has continued to expand its focus beyond military sites. President Zelensky said that a Russian drone attack on a residential house in central Ukraine killed about 5 civilians, including 3 from the same family. Another missile strike on Kharkiv injured about 18 people, including 4 children. Now, Zelensky, in fact, accused Moscow of trying to buy time to continue killing and has urged the West to impose maximum sanctions on Kremlin. Now, despite the sharp uptick in Russian attacks, Kiev isn't backing down. The Ukrainian armed forces have released footage of a precision missile strike on Russian missile systems in Bryansk, near the Belarusian border systems that they claim were preparing for another round of attacks on Ukraine. That was stationed far inside the Russian territory, including in the heart of Siberia, in what is being seen as one of Ukraine's boldest moves yet. But while its attacks may have been very audacious, the potential retaliation threatens to take the Russia-Ukraine conflict into some uncharted territory. All right, now joining us on this broadcast, we've got Dr. Sergei Simleny, who's a defense expert and also director at European Resilience Initiative Center. Dr. Simleny, thank you very much indeed for joining us here in WION. Now, there's a very interesting meeting that's in fact taken place at the Oval Office, where the American President Donald Trump has met with the new German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz. And Friedrich Merz seems to have a very different approach from his predecessor. Last week, he lifted all range restrictions for the long-range missiles that are given to Ukraine. And he met with the American president, who's been pushing for a ceasefire. There is a clear contrast in terms of how these two leaders approach the Ukraine war. In your assessment, can there be common ground with what Germany wants to do and what the American president wants to do?
Well, there is, of course, some reason to believe they can find a common ground, and Friedrich Merz has clearly demonstrated he can find his way, his key to Donald Trump's heart. He has brought a golden frame with the birth certificate of Donald Trump's grandfather. He knows that Trump loves gold, so here is gold for you. He thanked Donald Trump for the U.S. role in liberation of Germany from the Nazi regime, etc. So he practically played all registers in the soul of Donald Trump. And mentioning the role of the U.S. Army in the liberation of Europe from the Nazism, he immediately said, yes, now it is time to do the same to help Ukraine in this war. So it was a pretty smart move. And look, I don't think that there is actually a lot of conflict potential between two of them. Yes, Trump wants to set a sort of a peace deal. But Trump's real problem is not Ukraine. Trump's real problem is Vladimir Putin and Moscow, who do not want to reach a peace deal. It is clear that Ukraine has done a lot of moves to reach a sort of negotiations, and Moscow always rejected it.
Right.
You had mentioned before this attack of Ukrainian drones on the Russian planes, and you've seen that the planes were fully fueled and full with missiles. They were ready to take off to strike Ukraine in front of peace negotiations. So Ukraine has just prevented a huge missile strike. It's a clear sign that Russia didn't want serious peace talks. They wanted to subjugate Ukraine, and even Donald Trump needs to understand it.
Interesting. Now, the place where differences arise is how Germany and the United States under Donald Trump strategically look at a resurgent and a more powerful Russia. For the Germans, this is, of course, the worst-case nightmare scenario if Russia manages to prevail in Ukraine. Because this is what the German security analysts have been saying, that if Russia manages to win in Ukraine, the Germans will need to gird up their loins and will have to, strengthen their defenses, because there could be war within the end of this decade. This is what the Germans are saying. But the American president says that there is this big, beautiful ocean, that is the Atlantic Ocean, that separates Europe from the United States, and therefore it is not incumbent on the United States of America to provide a security umbrella to the Europeans. Do you think the two leaders can put their heads together and try give a united front to what Vladimir Putin is seeking to achieve in Ukraine?
Well, it's not a new dilemma. If we think about World War II, the Americans also believed in the beginning that two oceans prevent them from being attacked, and after all, Pearl Harbor has happened, and the U.S. had to first to participate in the war against Japan and then against Nazi Germany. So this isolationist ideology is endemic in the U.S., but it is never sustainable. It never provides the U.S. with real security. But after all, I think that it's good that Europe is, for the first time since 70 years, left on their own. So we must understand our security is our first priority. It shouldn't be priority of the U.S. If we have a war on the European continent next to our border, we need to strike back and restore peace and not wait for the U.S. to do our job.
Interesting. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Simlani, for joining us with that perspective there.
Thank you so much.